Hey everyone, I'm Summer, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about leadership, learning, and the choices we make that shape our families, our communities, our businesses. Today's topic has me into a lot of curiosity and sometimes into a lot of internal debate. Homeschooling, family learning, and how education can look very different from the traditional model that many of us grew up with. Today, my guest is Kristina Avritt. Kristina and her husband, Herbert, they have been partners for life for more than 3 decades. Believe me, she told me that herself. I know she looks pretty young, and how did you? She's raised two boys while blending her 27-year career as a teacher with Herbert's entrepreneurial and business expertise. Together, they founded Vibrant Family Education and Bringing Education Home podcast, where they are spreading the word about families rethinking how learning happens. Their mission is to help parents strengthen relationships with their children, reimagine education, and raise confident, capable, academically prepared children who are also prepared for life. So, Christina, I want to start with a question that so many parents these days are wondering about. For generations, traditional schooling has been seen as the default plan for everything, like for academic success, right? So let's begin here. Is homeschooling actually as effective as traditional schooling when it comes to academic outcomes? What does your research and experience show?
Thanks for having me, Summer. And yes, actually, it is amazing that whenever people go into homeschooling, lots of times they think maybe the academics are maybe subpar, or maybe they don't have as many experiences in an academic world as a traditional public school. But what's happened, especially since 2021, and we kind of know what happened back then, there are so much more opportunities online and as in like small pod groups in
Mhm.
neighborhoods, as in cohorts, as in people sharing their expertise online, that academics in the homeschool area has actually skyrocketed. People are learning so much more. And one of the best things that you want to think about is that when a child is fully invested in their learning,
Hmm.
then they actually learn more and retain more than if they're just being exposed to something in a class that they don't really care about. So when we talk about what it looks like to homeschool, I'll explain that a little bit more. How can they get so invested in what they're learning? But yes, academics are great. And actually, to answer that question even a little bit more,
Mhm.
colleges are seeking out homeschooled children because they
Oh.
come with a love of learning. They come with life skills, and they're more likely to finish college in the required amount of time because they
Hmm.
aren't worried about being on their own because they already have those skills built into them because of their homeschool journey.
They've had that discipline from being homeschooled.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's really interesting. I agree. Learning can look very different from outside the classroom. But homeschooling also carries a lot of assumptions, misconceptions, right? Like sometimes I
Yes.
think I've heard you say this on your podcast before, that some of the biggest barriers are not capability. They're
Mhm.
mostly like beliefs, right?
Yeah.
So I'm aware that there are some big myths about homeschooling that are stopping some families from even considering it. And I know this is a very big topic, um, because it touches on socialization for one,
Mhm.
academic, what do you call it, academic rigor,
Yeah.
and the confidence that parents have in their ability to guide the learning of their children. I'm curious to know your thoughts on this.
Yeah. And those are the big three myths that we talk about many times when we're on other podcasts. So I want to dive into some of those today. So the first one
Mhm.
is that I can't be my child's teacher because
Mm,
I don't have that academic degree. The
okay.
second myth is I don't have time because my family is very, very busy or I have to work full time or something like that. And that
Mm,
third myth is that socialization. Will they be capable and ready for the world? And I already kind of gave you a hint on that one because the colleges are searching out these kiddos, right?
yes.
So let's
Mhm.
go back to the very, very first one. And our society, especially here in the United States, is very much put forth to parents is that you can't be your child's teacher because you don't have a teaching degree, you don't have the academic awareness that teachers have, you aren't part of the system. And what I want to say to that is think back when you brought your little one home.
Mm,
You were their first teacher. You still are their first teacher. You taught them how to walk. You
mm,
taught them how to talk. You taught them how to, navigate the world. So what do you mean you can't be a teacher? You've already
mm,
done it. And
mhm,
part of this that I really want to put in here is that think about this. There's a difference in the way you use the word education.
Mm.
So many people think about the word education as in academics,
Mm-hmm.
but education is so much more than that. We want children who are capable in the world. So education is the brain, yes, the academics, but also the heart, mind, and soul of the child. Can they contribute to the world? Can they take care of themselves when they leave the home? Can they communicate and work with other people in cooperation? All of those
Mm.
things are so much different than just academics. So you are teaching them every single bit of that. And yes, you might not know how to teach algebra 2 or calculus or whatever. But guess what? Like I was also saying, those are taken care of now for the parents who can't do it themselves, either by
Mm.
co-op learning, going in, or a tutor, or
Mm-hmm.
online courses. There are so
Mm.
many ways to fill in those gaps of academics that you might
Mm-hmm.
not have, but the education portion is still yours. So you are absolutely the first best teacher, and you absolutely can handle this as parents.
And how very common are these tutorials or co-op learning groups,
Every
pods? What do you call them?
uh, co-ops, some people call them pods, some people call them learning centers. There's
Mm.
even a newer program called a micro school. And so those are
Mm.
also becoming very, very popular. And they're all over the place. You just have to do your research and figure out what's happening in your area. So if you go on Facebook and say homeschooling in my area, you'll have like 3 or 4 or 5 Facebook groups pop up about homeschooling. And then
Mm.
in there, you start asking, hey, what co-op is in near this town? What co-op is, or what tutor is available that does really well in this part of my city, kind of thing. And it's very much out there. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that a lot of people think that homeschooling might be religious because there are a lot of religious people who homeschool.
Yeah.
But if you're open, you could go to some of those religious organizations and talk to those homeschool families, and they will send you in the right direction. You don't have to become religious. You don't have to teach religion. But if you want to go explore what's available in homeschooling in your area, they have
Mm.
a pretty good pulse on it most of the time. So go ask the questions. Be open to finding out. Yeah.
Wonderful. And that's very powerful perspective. Now, as somebody that advocates homeschooling a lot, do you provide any resource to the general public to find those places where they can, get a place very close to them or something like that?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that happens in my beginning program with families is we really
Mhm.
talk about what resources are available in your area, and I help them do the research around that. And then
Mm.
beside that, because things are so much online, you can have a homeschool mentor or a homeschool coach that's not in your town, but still
Mm.
give you what you need. And that is basically my beginning program for parents who are ready to take this journey.
It's a whole world out on its own there about homeschooling. Something
Yeah.
else that I find very fascinating is how often homeschooling is homeschooling families also lean towards entrepreneurship or wanting to have flexible careers.
And the reason why, and this goes back to you're so awesome. You're taking me all the way back around because at the very beginning you asked me about the academic question, right? Are
Mm-hmm.
the academic rigors there high enough for
Mm-hmm.
the people? And this is where the parents and the kids get to dive in to the things that really excite the child or
Mm.
intrigue the child. And so after you get those basics done, they can read, they can do basic math, they can do their basic writing. Then they get to start pulling the learning towards them. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is that because there's no set curriculum in homeschool, you get to go down those paths with your child. So maybe you have a
Mm.
child that is completely enthralled about sharks, and all they want to learn about for a couple of weeks is sharks. Awesome. You can do all the reading, all the writing, most of the math around sharks. Your child is interested. They're going to
Mm.
learn those really cool facts about sharks. They're going to
Mm.
practice the skills that they need. And then they have had so much experience in that area that by the time they're 18, I'm trying to remember this, they have become like experts 3 times over. So if you consider an expert someone who's done like 10,000 hours in a topic,
Mm.
homeschool kids, because they're able to follow those passions, they can be experts on 3 different topics by the time they're 18, by the time they graduate high school. So then you start thinking about, oh my gosh, they have this knowledge around building because that's what they were really into. They have this really big knowledge around ocean biology because that's what they were into. Then they have those things that they can turn into entrepreneur ideas or go into the college or the education that extends them to get the credentials they want to be well off in companies.
Mm. How
Yeah.
fascinating. This wants me to become a child again and ask my parents to homeschool me, or, I could just go on the internet and start educating myself on and get entered into colleges easily because I homeschooled.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm loving
Now you
this.
do have to do your tracking. You do have to write things down and have like, a diploma, a transcript, things like that. You can't just say,
Mm,
walk in and say, I homeschooled, I'm good. But, those are the things that parents learn as they get to those ages of how to track all that stuff and be ready to be able to apply to colleges.
mm. So that's why so many families are finding it easier to build a business at home or do some creative
Mhm.
work while homeschooling their child.
Yeah.
And
And
I
it's
think that's what you do.
Yeah, I do. And part of that is that because you're home with your child, they get to watch what you do. You get to be
Hmm.
a role model. And so, guess who a lot of homeschool families are? They're entrepreneurs or small business owners who have a little bit more flexibility about being home with their kids or things like that. And that's not to say that a regular family who has jobs outside the home can't be homeschool families, because you
Hmm. Hmm.
absolutely can. And I'll get
Hmm.
into that in just a second when I talk about not having enough time. But the thing that happens is because you're the model and you're being the curious entrepreneur, you're
Hmm.
being the person who's trying something new, your child sees that and they're going to say, oh, I wonder if I could do something like that. And because, academics only take, and this is part of the time, academics only take about half an hour when they're in what's called considered kindergarten, first, second grade.
Hmm.
So that's it. If you do strict academics, right? It's only about a half hour a day. And then you play and you experience life and you bring all the learning into life around that. When they're in
Hmm.
high school, it's maybe 2 to 3 hours a day that they're solid academics and really, really structured. But then think about what they get to do with the rest of the day. If they're artists, they get to dive into their craft. If they're musicians, they get to dive into
Hmm.
their craft. If they want to learn
Hmm.
how to build, they get to go with dad to the construction site and build with them, kind of things, right? It's all these different opportunities that's available. If you're
Hmm.
really a community oriented family, you get to start giving back to the community. You get to go to the food bank. You get to go do park cleanups. You get to do all these different, help seniors in senior homes, all these things that actually round your child out to
Hmm.
being this person who can accelerate. So yeah, a lot of entrepreneur families come from homeschool families as well. Mhm.
Wow. And there's no more reason to say I don't have the time to do this anymore.
Mhm. Yeah.
Even when you take a traditional middle school, a traditional middle school has 4 hours of academic per day, and then there's
Mhm.
play built around it. There's a lunch break built around it. There's physical sessions, there's
Yeah.
craft sessions, music
Yeah.
classes. All these things are incorporated together. So why can't we just make those 3 or 4 hours when homeschool our
Yeah.
kids, right?
Exactly.
One one
Exactly.
one final area that I think people are more curious about is the practical side of things.
Mhm.
Of course, rules obviously vary depending on where some people live, but I understand that a piece can make a whole idea feel more approachable. Like, what do families need to know about legal requirements for homeschooling?
I'm
Tell
so
me
glad you
about,
asked.
give me an example of where you are and what your rules are. I'm in Canada, it's a different country.
It is, but luckily Canada allows homeschooling. So there are some countries in the world that do not. Germany
Hmm.
is one of them. You absolutely cannot homeschool your child. They have to be in public school. Greece is another one. They have to
Hmm.
have them in public school. They don't allow homeschooling. Here in the United States, of course, there's 50 different states, and there's almost 50 different ways to homeschool. So let me talk about
Wow.
it talk about it in levels. So
Hmm.
whatever state you're in, you really need to do your research. But they're mostly broken into three different categories.
Hmm.
So there's the high control states, and these are the states where you have to register your child with some kind of organization, whether it's a state or an educational service district, something like that. You
Hmm.
have to do testing. And oftentimes they also require like turning in not necessarily lesson plans, but what you did during the year. You have to prove that you actually
A
taught
report
your
of some
child through
sort.
the year. Yeah, a report
Hmm.
of some sort. And those are the high touch states. The medium touch states, again, there's some kind of requirement to register them so that they know that the child's being homeschooled, that they're getting some kind of education. And then there may either be, it's kind of either or. Either you have to turn in your plans of what you did during the year, or they have to be tested at certain grade levels. So my state is Oregon. They are required to register and they have to test at grades 3, 5, 8, and 10 to make sure that they're
Hmm.
showing academic progress, right? The
Hmm.
rest of that, the rest of it, the state's pretty much hands off unless there's an issue, right? Unless somebody
Hmm.
reports there's something going on. And then there's the very low touch or no touch states. And those, some of them you only have to send in a letter saying you're homeschool, and some there's nothing you have to do.
Wow.
You just keep your kids home and you teach them. So yeah, there's
And
definitely,
isn't there a legislation that says they have to do certain things to get their high school diploma or middle school diploma or whatever that is?
it would be a high school diploma, exactly.
Mm,
And that goes back to looking at your public school system and
mm,
making sure that if you're going to have a child that goes to college and you need a specific transcript, then you want to make sure you're making them get those classes that match that transcript, like a public school child would have, that the college would accept. Right. Many colleges
mhm.
also, though, they look at the transcript, but then they also take like big test scores, like the SAT test score, and they
Right.
use that also because if you can pass what's called the SAT in the United States, then they know you have enough knowledge to at least get started. And most colleges anymore, whenever you get there, they
Mhm,
automatically put you into like ability testing for reading, writing, math anyway, and then they
mhm.
place you in the beginning level classes according to where you tested. So they have it kind of worked out a little bit that if you're kind of low in one area, you have a way of still catching up and being there. Yeah.
Wow. Now this is making me wish that I had a child that I could teach at home. What wonders it could do for family relationships. So many ways that children can learn and thrive.
And that's the biggest thing about homeschooling I want parents to really think about. There's
Mhm,
a study out there saying that families who send their kids to traditional public school only have a small amount of time with their child. But a
mm,
child that is homeschooled, the family ends up spending, I believe it's 17,000 more hours with their child. And think about that. If you're spending that much more time with your child, what kind of connection and relationship can you have? What kind of family
100%.
cohesiveness you can have? Now,
Mhm,
is it easy? No, it's not always easy. There's always going to be ups and downs, right? And there's
mhm,
always going to be times that you're going to want to ask for help because something's gone kind of crooked, right? Gone kind of sideways. And there are some kids who homeschooling is not a fit for. I'm not saying that every single family should homeschool because there
mm.
are different kids with different needs. But think about your child, think about you, and think about what you can do. And at least look at it if it's something that is intriguing to you, something you have a curiosity about. And the last thing I want to say is that think about even if you can do it for a year or two and
Mm,
have your child love learning and have self-confidence because they've been strong learners and they've got a lot of skills. And then they maybe still have to go back to public school. They get to carry that with them and they end up in
true.
public school in a different space. So it's okay if they end up having to go to public school or they were at public school and you homeschool and then you end up having to put them back. There's still those connections, those times that were increased because of it.
Thank you, Christina. I think this was one of my most perfect Teach Me Something episode. You brought in so much learning for especially people who are thinking about homeschooling or having these myths around. But you guys, if this episode aroused your curiosity about learning more about homeschooling or alternative approaches to learning, make sure you connect with Christina and explore her work that she and Herbert are doing together at the Vibrant Family Education and Bringing Education Home podcast. The links are in the description below. Christina, what's a good way for people to get in touch with you?
Actually, the easiest way is just go to the website, vibrantfamilyeducation.com. On there, you have the events calendar that you can see where we're speaking and talking. You also has my free gift right at the very, very top, 10 simple steps to start homeschooling. And then, of course, my booking link where you can call or set a calendar with me. And any question is about education, I'm open for, or parenting. Come on in, let's have a chat.
Wonderful. And is there a free resource you would like to share with my audience?
Yes, it's right there at the top of that website. It's called
Mhm.
Education at Home in 10 Simple Steps. And so you go to vibrantfamilyeducation.com. It's right at the top. Click send me this, and it will give you some things to think about and help you get started. And then you'll know what other questions to ask as you're starting on your journey.
Beautiful. You guys, if you're enjoying these conversations where experts come into this channel to truly teach us something, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with somebody who loves learning and who loves questioning the status quo of everything. Get in touch with Christina. Her links are right below. Take a look in the description. There's a link to her podcast. Connect with her on LinkedIn and take a look at her website. Grab that free resources if you're looking to homeschool your child. And Christina, thank you so much for making my day today because this has been a beautiful episode.
Thank you so very much.
I will see you guys in the next episode.